All you do is take. You've never given this family anything. Miranda's voice cut through our penthouse like a blade through silk. She stood there in her tailored Armani suit, fresh from another board meeting, pointing at me like I was something she'd scraped off her Louboutin heel. My name is Evan Foster, and until 2 months ago, I thought I had a marriage. Turns out I had a business arrangement that had gone sour. Sophie, our 19-year-old daughter, nodded from the leather couch like a bobblehead doll. Mom's right, Dad. You just sit around all day while she works. I looked around our $3 million penthouse overlooking Boston Harbor, the place I'd bought with my hedge fund earnings before Miranda's tech company even existed. The irony wasn't lost on me, but apparently it was lost on them. If you had any pride, you'd leave, Miranda continued, her green eyes blazing with righteous indignation. I'm tired of carrying dead weight. Dead weight? That's what 20 years of marriage had become to her. Dead weight. I stood up slowly from my chair, walked to the window, and watched the harbor lights twinkle below. Behind me, I could hear Miranda's heels clicking impatiently on the marble floor. You know what, Miranda? I turned around, my voice calm as still water. You're absolutely right. The clicking stopped. I am? You are. I should leave. In fact, I think I will. Sophie looked confused. This wasn't how these fights usually went. Usually I'd argue back, defend myself, remind them of my contributions. Not tonight. I walked to our bedroom, my bedroom, technically, since my name was the only one on the deed, and pulled out a leather overnight bag. Miranda followed, her confidence wavering slightly. What are you doing? Exactly what you suggested. Leaving. I packed methodically. A few shirts, some pants, my toiletries. You want to see what it's like when I don't give this family anything? Consider it a trial run. Evan, I didn't mean... Oh, but you did. I zipped the bag closed and faced her. You meant every word. Sophie meant every nod. So let's see how this plays out. I walked past them both, grabbed my keys from the granite countertop, and headed for the door. Where are you going? Sophie called out, suddenly sounding younger than her 19 years. I paused at the door, my hand on the brass handle. Somewhere I'm appreciated. The door closed behind me with a satisfying click. That's the thing about pride. It's more useful than a prenup. 2 months later, I was sitting in Murphy's bar on the south side of Boston, nursing a whiskey and reading the Wall Street Journal on my tablet. Murphy's wasn't the kind of place Miranda would ever set foot in. Too real, too honest. Perfect for me. My phone buzzed. Sophie's name flashed on the screen. Dad? Her voice was shaky, tearful. Something's wrong with my tuition. The bursar's office says the payment was declined. I took a sip of whiskey, savoring the burn. That's odd. Can you call Mom? She's not answering her phone, and I have a test tomorrow. I can't focus on anything. I'm sure she'll sort it out, sweetheart. After I hung up, I didn't have to wait long. My phone exploded with Miranda's fury 3 minutes later. What the hell did you do? She screamed before I could even say hello. Good evening, Miranda. How was your day? Don't you dare play games with me. Why did you pull out your $50 million in shares? I just lost the Hartwell contract because we can't show adequate liquid assets? I smiled at my reflection in the bar mirror. Thought I never gave this family anything. This isn't a joke, Evan. Do you have any idea what you've done? The board is furious. Our stock price dropped 12% today. Sounds like a you problem. A me problem? It's a family problem. Sophie's tuition, our mortgage, the country club membership. All in my name, Miranda. All paid from my accounts. Funny how that works. The silence on the other end stretched for nearly 30 seconds. I could practically hear the gears turning in her calculating mind. You can't do this. I already did. The prenup protects my assets, not yours. You might want to reread it. I had good lawyers. Evan, please. We can work this out. Come home. We'll talk. I finished my whiskey and signaled Murphy for another. I am home, Miranda. This is where people appreciate me. I hung up and turned off my phone. Murphy, a 60-something Irishman with hands like ham hocks, slid another whiskey across the scarred wooden bar. Trouble in paradise? Paradise ended 2 months ago. This is just the cleanup. He nodded knowingly. My ex-wife used to say I never gave her anything. Turns out she was right. After the divorce, I didn't give her a damn thing. I raised my glass to him. To not giving them anything? Slaint. Revenge, like dividends, is best when it's compounding. Mason Kelly's private investigation office was exactly what you'd expect from an ex-Boston cop. Cramped, cluttered, and smelling faintly of cigarettes and old coffee. Mason himself looked like he'd been carved out of granite and left out in the rain for 20 years. So let me get this straight, he said, leaning back in his creaky chair. You want me to dig into your own wife? Ex-wife, soon enough. And yes. What exactly are you looking for? I'd known Mason since college. He'd been the only honest cop in a precinct full of dirty ones until he'd gotten tired of fighting the system. Now he fought cheating spouses and insurance fraud. It was more honest work. Everything. Financial irregularities, personal indiscretions, business dealings. I want to know what Miranda Foster does when she thinks nobody's watching. Mason pulled out a legal pad and started writing. That this is going to cost you. Money's not an issue. It never is with you, rich boys. He looked up at me with those cop eyes that had seen everything twice. But I gotta ask, why now? You've been married to her for 20 years. Why didn't you want to know this stuff before? I thought about that for a moment. Because before I loved her. Love makes you stupid. Makes you trust when you should verify. Makes you give when you should take. And now? Now I'm clear-eyed. Mason nodded. Clear-eyed is good in this business. Angry clients make mistakes. Clear-eyed clients get results. He quoted me his daily rate plus expenses. I wrote him a check for 10 times that amount. That should cover the first month. His eyebrows shot up. Jesus, Evan. What do you think I'm going to find? I don't know. But whatever it is, I want to find it first. 3 days later, Mason called me at Murphy's. You need to see this, he said. Can you meet me at my office? On my way. When I got there, Mason had photographs spread across his desk like a poker hand. Black and white surveillance shots. The kind that end marriages and start lawsuits. Your wife's been busy, he said. The photos showed Miranda entering a downtown high-rise at various times over the past month, always during business hours, always looking around nervously before going inside. Whose building is that? Derek Vaughn. Ring any bells? It did. Derek Vaughn was a serial entrepreneur, the kind of guy who called himself a disruptor, while disrupting nothing but other people's marriages. He'd tried to buy Miranda's company twice in the past 3 years. She'd turned him down both times, claiming he was a sleazy opportunist. Turns out she was half right. How long has this been going on? Based on the building's security footage I managed to acquire through unofficial channels, about 8 months. 8 months. That meant it started long before our fight, long before she threw me out. I'd been played from the beginning. There's more, Mason said. He handed me another set of photos. These showed Miranda and Derek at various restaurants around the city. Intimate dinners, holding hands across tables. One particularly damning shot showed them kissing in Derek's car outside a hotel. Nothing says family values like sleeping with your business rival, I muttered. Gets better. I ran Derek's financials. He's leveraged to his eyeballs. 3 mortgages, 2 business loans, and a gambling problem he thinks nobody knows about. I studied the photos more carefully. In every shot, Miranda looked happy. Genuinely happy in a way I hadn't seen her look in years. It should have hurt more than it did. What else? Derek's got a fixer, woman named Chloe Martinez. She's the one who's been covering their tracks. Fake business meetings, alibis, the whole 9 yards. She's also been feeding Derek inside information about your wife's company. Industrial espionage? The kind that'll get you federal charges if the SEC finds out. I gathered up the photos and handed them back to Mason. Keep digging. I want to know everything about Derek Vaughn's business dealings. Every loan, every investor, every skeleton in every closet. What are you planning, Evan? I stood up and straightened my jacket. I'm going to give my wife exactly what she deserves. Which is? Nothing. If you think this is over, Derek, you're even dumber than you look. Miranda's company, Foster Technologies, occupied 3 floors of a glass tower in downtown Boston. I'd visited exactly twice in the past 5 years, once for a Christmas party, once for a board meeting where they'd voted to give Miranda a raise. I'd abstained, claiming conflict of interest. Funny how conflict of interest works. I owned 30% of the company through various investment vehicles. Miranda owned 40%. The remaining 30% was split among 5 board members, all of whom I'd helped recruit when the company was struggling to find capital. The monthly board meeting was scheduled for 10 a.m. on a Thursday. I arrived at 9:30 dressed in my best suit and carrying a leather briefcase full of Mason's research. Chloe Martinez was waiting in the lobby. She was exactly what I'd expected from Mason's description. Mid-30s, attractive in a calculated way, wearing a smile that never reached her eyes. "Mr. Foster, what a surprise. Miranda didn't mention you'd be joining us today." "Miranda doesn't know." Her smile flickered. "I should let her know you're here." "Don't bother. I'll announce myself." The boardroom was on the 32nd floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Boston Harbor. Miranda sat at the head of the long mahogany table, presenting quarterly projections to 5 men in expensive suits. She looked confident, in control, every inch the successful CEO. That was about to change. I opened the door and walked in without knocking. "Sorry I'm late," I said, taking the empty chair at the foot of the table. "Traffic was murder." Miranda's face went through several expressions in rapid succession: surprise, confusion, anger, and finally, forced composure. "Evan, this is unexpected." "I'm sure it is." I opened my briefcase and pulled out a stack of documents. "Gentlemen, I think you need to see these." Board member number 1, a silver-haired banker named Harrison, leaned forward. "What kind of documents?" "Financial records showing that our CFO has been sharing proprietary information with Derek Vaughn, a known competitor who's been trying to acquire this company for years." The room went dead silent. Miranda's face had gone pale. "That's ridiculous," she said. "Derek Vaughn is—" "Your lover," I finished. "Yes, I know. I have photos." I slid a manila envelope across the table to Harrison. He opened it, looked at the first photo, and his eyebrows shot up to his hairline. "Jesus Christ, Miranda." The envelope made its way around the table. Each board member's reaction was the same: shock, then disgust, then anger. These were old-school businessmen who took fiduciary responsibility seriously. "There's more," I continued. "Derek Vaughn has been using inside information to short our stock, while simultaneously trying to manipulate us into a merger that would leave him in control of our technology patents." Board member number 2, a tech entrepreneur named Phillips, was studying a financial document. "These numbers, if this is accurate, Vaughn's been coordinating his moves with our quarterly announcements." "It's accurate. I had it verified by 3 independent sources." Miranda finally found her voice. "This is a setup. Evan's angry about our separation. He's trying to destroy me." "Am I destroying you, Miranda? Or am I just showing these gentlemen what you've been doing with their company?" Harrison was reading through a thick report. "It says here that you've been using company resources to investigate potential merger targets without board approval. That's a violation of your fiduciary duty." "And this," Phillips added, holding up another document, "shows payments to Chloe Martinez's consulting firm that aren't reflected in our official books." I leaned back in my chair and watched Miranda's world crumble in real time. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. "I think we need to call for a vote," Harrison said. "A vote on what?" Miranda asked. "Your removal as CEO, effective immediately." The vote was 5-0, with Miranda abstaining and me voting present. In less than 20 minutes, Miranda Foster went from corporate powerhouse to unemployed. As the board members filed out, muttering among themselves about damage control and SEC notifications, Miranda sat alone at the head of the empty table. "You bastard," she whispered. "I prefer shareholder advocate," I replied, packing up my briefcase. "Don't worry, Miranda. I'm sure Derek will take care of you." "Oh, wait, he's about to have problems of his own." I left her sitting there, staring out at the harbor, where our penthouse was visible in the distance. A hostile takeover never felt so personal. Sophie was waiting for me outside my hotel that evening, sitting on the steps like a lost puppy. She'd been crying, her makeup was smudged, and her usually perfect hair was disheveled. How could you do that to Mom? She said as I approached. Do what? Don't play dumb. It's all over the financial news. Foster Technologies CEO ousted in scandal. They're calling her a corporate Matahari. I sat down beside her on the concrete steps. The hotel wasn't much, a mid-range business place near the financial district. But it was honest. No pretense, no marble floors, no harbor views. Just a clean room and room service that didn't judge you for eating alone. Sophie, what exactly do you think I did? You destroyed her company. You humiliated her in front of the board. I presented factual information to the shareholders. They made their own decision. Factual information about what? I looked at my daughter. Really looked at her. She had Miranda's green eyes, but my stubborn chin. For 19 years, I'd protected her from the uglier realities of adult life. Maybe it was time she learned a few things. Your mother has been having an affair for 8 months with a man named Derek Vaughn. She's been using company resources to help him gather intelligence on our business operations. She's violated her fiduciary duty to the shareholders and potentially committed securities fraud. Sophie stared at me like I'd slapped her. That's not true. It is true. I have photographs, financial records, and witness statements. Mom wouldn't do that. Your mother threw me out of our home for being dead weight while she was sleeping with another man. Your mother let you blame me for not contributing to this family while she was stealing from the company I helped build. Your mother— Stop it! Sophie jumped to her feet. You're lying. I'm not lying, sweetheart. I'm just not protecting you from the truth anymore. She stood there for a long moment, tears streaming down her face. Finally, she wiped her nose with the back of her hand and looked down at me. Even if that's all true, she's still my mother. And you destroyed her. No, Sophie. She destroyed herself. I just made sure everyone could see it. She turned and walked away without another word. I watched her disappear around the corner, probably heading back to the penthouse to comfort Miranda. Family is what's left when the money's gone. Sometimes that's nothing. Derek Vaughn lived in a glass tower on the waterfront, the kind of place that screamed new money and insecurity. 42nd floor, corner unit, probably cost him $3 million he didn't have. Mason and I were sitting in his rental car across the street, watching the building's parking garage. Derek drove a red Ferrari, because of course he did. And according to his routine, he'd be leaving for his regular Thursday night poker game in about 20 minutes. You sure about this? Mason asked. Sure about what? Confronting him directly. Guys like Derek, they're unpredictable when they're cornered. I checked my watch. Derek Vaughn is a coward who's been hiding behind my wife's skirts for 8 months. He's not going to do anything. Famous last words. At exactly 8:15, the red Ferrari emerged from the parking garage. Derek was alone, talking on his phone, probably to Miranda. Mason started the engine and pulled into traffic 3 cars behind. We followed him through downtown Boston, across the bridge, and into a neighborhood I recognized. He wasn't going to his poker game. He was going to Murphy's bar. Interesting choice, Mason muttered as we watched Derek park illegally in front of the bar. He's looking for me. How do you figure? Murphy's isn't exactly Derek Vaughn's scene, but Miranda knows I've been spending time there. She probably told him. We watched Derek enter the bar. Through the front window, I could see him talking to Murphy, gesturing animatedly. Murphy shook his head and pointed toward the door. Murphy's not giving him anything, I said. Derek came back outside, looking frustrated. He stood on the sidewalk for a moment, then started walking toward a black sedan parked half a block away. That's not his car, Mason observed. No, it's not. The sedan's engine started, and it began moving slowly down the street. Derek jogged to catch up with it, then got in the passenger side. We following? Mason asked. Oh, absolutely. The sedan led us on a winding route through Boston's financial district. It was after business hours, so the streets were mostly empty, perfect for a private conversation or a not-so-private confrontation. The sedan finally stopped in a parking garage beneath one of the newer office towers. We parked on the street level and watched the entrance. This feels like a setup, Mason said. Everything feels like a setup when you're paranoid. I'm not paranoid. I'm experienced. We waited 15 minutes before Derek emerged from the garage alone. He looked shaken, kept looking over his shoulder as he walked quickly back toward his Ferrari. Mason and I followed him on foot, staying in the shadows between streetlights. Derek was moving fast, almost jogging, constantly checking behind him. He reached his car and fumbled with the keys. His hands were shaking. That's when I stepped out of the shadows. Evening, Derek. He spun around, nearly dropping his keys. Jesus, you scared the hell out of me. Good. We need to talk. I don't have anything to say to you. Sure you do. You have 8 months' worth of things to say to me. Derek looked around nervously. The street was empty except for us and Mason, who was standing about 20 feet away, arms crossed, looking like the ex-cop he was. Look, Evan, I know this is awkward, but... Awkward? I stepped closer to him. Derek, you've been fucking my wife and stealing from my company. Awkward doesn't begin to cover it. It's not like that. It's exactly like that. I was close enough now to see the sweat on his forehead, despite the cool evening air. But here's the thing, Derek. I don't actually care about you and Miranda. You two deserve each other. Then what do you want? I want you to understand something very clearly. I leaned in close enough that he could smell the whiskey on my breath. If you ever, and I mean ever, try to involve my daughter in your schemes, if you so much as speak to Sophie, if you even think about using her to get to me or Miranda, I will destroy you. I would never... I grabbed the front of his expensive shirt and pushed him back against his Ferrari. I'm not finished. You think what happened to Miranda today was bad? That was just the opening act. I know about your gambling debts, Derek. I know about the 3 mortgages on this car. I know about the SEC investigation that's coming your way next week. His eyes went wide. What SEC investigation? The one I'm going to trigger when I turn over evidence of your insider trading to the federal prosecutors. I let go of his shirt and stepped back. Unless, of course, you disappear. Disappear? Leave Boston. Tonight. Don't come back. Don't call Miranda. Don't call Chloe. Don't even send a postcard. Just vanish. Derek straightened his shirt with shaking hands. And if I don't? I smiled at him. The kind of smile that doesn't reach your eyes. Then you'll find out what it's like when someone with real money decides to destroy you. I turned and walked away, Mason falling into step beside me. Think he'll run? Mason asked. Oh, he'll run. Cowards always run when they realize they're outgunned. Behind us, I heard the Ferrari's engine start. Derek peeled out of the parking space and disappeared into the night. If you think this is over, Derek, you're even dumber than you look. The next morning, I was having breakfast at a diner near my hotel when Sandra, my sister, slid into the booth across from me. She looked exactly like she always did. Practical clothes, no makeup, graying hair pulled back in a ponytail. Sandra had never pretended to be anything other than what she was. A high school English teacher who lived in the same house she'd inherited from our parents. You look like hell, she said by way of greeting. Good morning to you too. Coffee, she told the waitress, then turned back to me. So, I hear you've been busy. News travels fast. Miranda called me at 6 this morning, crying. Said you'd ruined her life. I cut into my eggs, Benedict, watching the yolk run across the plate. Miranda ruined her own life. I just made sure there were consequences. She also said Derek Vaughn disappeared last night. Packed up and left town without telling anyone where he was going. Huh, imagine that. Sandra studied me with the same expression she used on students who claimed their homework was eaten by dogs. What did you do, Evan? I had a conversation with him. What kind of conversation? The kind that clarifies priorities. The waitress brought Sandra's coffee. She added 2 sugars and stirred slowly, thinking. You know what I've never understood about you? She finally said. I'm sure you're going to tell me. You're brilliant with money. You can see market trends 6 months before they happen. You can turn $1,000 into $1 million with the right investments. But you're an idiot with people. Thanks for the pep talk. I'm serious. You spent 20 years married to a woman who was obviously using you and you never saw it coming. I saw it. I just chose to ignore it. Why? I thought about that question while I finished my eggs. Why had I ignored the signs? The late meetings that could have been phone calls, the business trips that lasted longer than they needed to, the way Miranda looked at me like I was furniture that had outlived its usefulness. Because I wanted to believe I was wrong, I said finally. Because admitting your wife doesn't love you means admitting you've wasted 20 years of your life. Sandra nodded. And now? Now, I'm done wasting time. My phone buzzed with a text message. Sophie, Dad, can we talk? Something's happened. I showed Sandra the message. Looks like the next act is beginning. You going to see her? Of course. Be careful, Evan. Revenge is like chemotherapy. It might kill the cancer, but it'll make you sick in the process. I left money on the table and kissed Sandra's forehead. Too late to worry about that now. Sophie was waiting for me in the lobby of my hotel. She looked like she hadn't slept, and she was clutching her phone like a lifeline. What happened? I asked. I recorded something last night. Something Mom and Chloe said. I think you need to hear it. We went up to my room and Sophie played the recording on her phone. The audio was muffled, but clear enough to understand. Miranda and Chloe were discussing how to frame me for domestic abuse, complete with fake bruises and coached testimony. We just need one incident on record, Chloe was saying. Something that shows a pattern of controlling behavior. What about the financial stuff? Miranda asked. Can we claim he was financially abusive? Even better. Financial abuse is harder to disprove, and it fits the narrative of him pulling the money out of spite. Sophie stopped the recording and looked at me with tears in her eyes. Dad, I'm so sorry. I believed her. I thought you were the bad guy. I sat down on the edge of the bed and pulled my daughter into a hug. She felt small and fragile. Nothing like the confident college student who'd been nodding along with Miranda's accusations 2 months ago. It's okay, sweetheart. She's your mother. You're supposed to believe her. But she was lying about everything. Yes, she was. What are we going to do? I looked out the window at the Boston skyline, at the glass towers where people like Miranda and Derek played their games with other people's lives. We're going to finish this. Turns out, the only thing Miranda built was her own downfall. The charity gala was Miranda's last desperate attempt to salvage her reputation. The Boston Children's Hospital fundraiser, held every year at the Fairmont Copley Plaza, was where the city's elite gathered to write tax-deductible checks and pretend they cared about something other than themselves. Miranda had bought a table for $10,000, money she probably didn't have anymore, and invited every business leader, politician, and media figure she could think of. Her plan was obvious. Surround herself with important people, give a speech about resilience and moving forward, and hope everyone forgot about the scandal. It might have worked if I hadn't bought the table right next to hers. I arrived with Sandra and Mason, both of them dressed better than I'd ever seen them. Sandra had actually worn a dress, a simple black number that made her look like the intelligent, dignified woman she'd always been. Mason had traded his usual rumpled suit for a tuxedo that made him look like a retired FBI agent instead of a down-on-his-luck private investigator. Miranda was holding court at her table, surrounded by sycophants and social climbers. She was wearing a red dress that probably cost more than most people's cars, and she was laughing just a little too loudly at jokes that weren't that funny. She saw me the moment I walked in. Her laugh died mid-giggle, and her face went pale beneath her carefully applied makeup. Showtime, Mason muttered. We made our way through the crowd, stopping to chat with various acquaintances. I'd been part of Boston's social scene long enough to know most of the players, and they all knew about Miranda's recent troubles. The conversations were polite but pointed, full of carefully worded questions about my situation. Evan, Harold Westbrook, a banker I'd done business with for 15 years, grabbed my arm as we passed his table. Hell of a thing about Miranda's company. You must be devastated. Actually, Harold, I'm relieved. Sometimes you don't realize how toxic a situation is until you're out of it. Still, to find out about the affair that way must have been a shock. The affair wasn't a shock, Harold. The incompetence was. Word traveled fast in a room full of gossips. By the time we reached our table, half the room was buzzing about my comments. Miranda kept glancing over at us, her smile becoming more forced with each passing minute. The evening's program began with dinner, followed by speeches from hospital administrators and grateful parents. Miranda was scheduled to speak just before the main fundraising auction. When her name was announced, she walked to the podium with her head held high, every inch the successful businesswoman. She began her speech with the usual platitudes about community service and giving back. Sometimes, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the ballroom, we face challenges that test our character. but it's in those moments of adversity that we discover who we really are. I stood up. The movement was subtle, but in a room where everyone was seated, it drew attention. Miranda's eyes found mine, and she stumbled slightly over her next words. We discover we discover that integrity isn't just about following rules. It's about doing what's right even when no one is watching. I began walking toward the front of the room, my footsteps echoing on the marble floor. Conversations stopped. Heads turned. Miranda's voice faltered. It's about being honest with ourselves and with the people who trust us. I reached the front of the room and stopped, just close enough to the podium that everyone could see us both. Miranda's hands were shaking as she gripped the microphone. It's about... She looked down at me, her eyes wide with something that might have been fear. It's about accountability. Yes, I said, my voice carrying clearly through the silent ballroom. It is. Miranda stared at me for what felt like an eternity. Then she set down the microphone and walked quickly toward the exit, her heels clicking frantically on the marble floor. The room erupted in whispers and murmurs. I walked back to my table as if nothing had happened, but I could feel hundreds of eyes following my every move. Jesus, Evan, Sandra whispered as I sat down. That was brutal. That was necessary. 20 minutes later, Mason's phone buzzed with a text message. He read it and showed me the screen. Package delivered. While Miranda was fleeing the gala in humiliation, federal agents were serving search warrants at Derek Vaughn's abandoned apartment and Chloe Martinez's office. The SEC investigation I'd threatened Derek with was real, and it was just getting started. By morning, the story would be all over the financial news. Former Foster Technologies CEO flees charity event as federal investigation expands. But that wasn't